Okay, so I propose to start to begin with. Ladies and gentlemen, so I'm Lieutenant Colonel Pierre Mesped, currently assigned to the cabinet of the Minister of Defense. And I'm here to give you a feedback on the fight against improvised explosive devices in the Sahel-Syrian Strip during the Operation Barkhane. I had the honor to command the Task Force Counter ID for 4 months from September 21 to February 22. This young unit was armed by my previous regiment and counted about 200 sappers. The goal of my speech and this unit which was built in a pragmatic way, is the support of the battle groups in the counter ID fight. And the objective of my speech today is to give you my feedback on this mission in order to highlight both the organizational innovations and the capability means implemented into the fight against improvised devices. So just a slide to describe the general context of my mission in the Sahara-Syrian Strip with the Operation Barkhane. So while neutralizing ID threat during convoys and ensuring the freedom of movement of the force, we had to support the whole transformation of Barkhane, of the operation, through the takeover of Tessalit base, Kidal base, and Timbuktu bases to the Malians. So in addition, we had to support the ramp-up of the Takuba task force, while we were to guaranteeing local flows through Niger, through Burkina Faso, and the Republic of Ivory Coast. So the EID is the main weapon used by the terrorists because of few reasons. Obviously, it is relatively a weapon easy to make. It is easy to transport on motorcycles, on pickup, on light vehicles. It's easy to set up, especially by an enemy who masters the terrain and has total freedom of movement on all the terrain. It offers also an unbeatable cost efficiency ratio. It's definitely a poor man's weapon with a strong destructive power, and obviously it's the most deadly weapon used. So to begin, let's see some interesting data to highlight the ID threat. Among the major trends, we can note a sharply rising ID threat. ID attacks against the force have doubled in 1 year, in 2021. The enemy is also looking for better targeting discrimination. This is demonstrated by the decline in the proportion of the civilian threats during attacks, and it's also demonstrated by the increasing use of the radio command IDs. Attacks also were increasingly concentrated on Barkhane, as you can see on the bottom of the chart on the bottom, on Barkhane forces, on the local armed forces, and on partner forces. Regarding the location of this threat and its nature, we have gone from this situation in 2020 to this one in 21. It highlights a threat that is becoming stronger, and regionalized. Also a significant increase toward west, so toward Bamako, and the expansion into Niger, northern Burkina Faso, which constitute a direct threat to our backloop logistic convoys to the Republic of the Ivory Coast. And we have also an increase of the use of the anti-tank mines with low metal content, as you have two examples on the right of the slide. Among the major trends, we also note a significant increase of the radio command ID, as I said, and also a significant increase in the casualties. in 21 compared to the all other years, which underlies also the pressure of the enemy during this period. We note 4 enemy tactical techniques and procedures used against us. The first one is screening, opportunity laying, and a gap area exploitation by the enemy. These techniques consist in the exploitation by the enemy of the predictability of our movements by screening out our convoys thanks to an highly structured and organized network of screeners. The second, it's complex attack, always facilitated by a network of screeners also. That comes to lines to our convoy. The enemy activate or placed ID on a favorable area of the terrain. That also permits to apply fire to the units and take over from a protection-friendly reaction. The third one is the suicide attack, requiring significant preparation for the enemy, in particular to condition condition the suicide candidate, to collect sufficiency information and intel on us, to collect also explosive resources with, for example, 300 kilograms of homemade explosive, to select the target. So it's this type of action, this mode of action remains fortunately quite rare. And the last one, which I call the siege of a base, we call it. So it consists of saturating the immediate environment of a base by setting IDs or mainly pressure plates or anti-tank mines. That was used mainly on the Menaka. Facing this evolving threat, I will now present our response. So, initiated after a series of deaths from ID's attacks in the late 20 or in the early 21, the task force Counter ID aims to optimize our response. So, in direct support of the battle groups, from the planning operation to their execution, the task force aims to increase the analysis capability to reinforce detections, to search capabilities, and finally develop collaboration with our foreign partners to establish to establish itself as an identified essential player in the Syrian Strip. So while it's difficult to establish a direct correlation between the task force and the defeat of the ID, the results that we made are barely convincing. Despite on a growing threat, as I said, in particular, a growing threat, we succeed in some way to prevent enemy attacks. So the Counter ID task force acts on 3 pillars of the Counter ID fight. So attack the network, defeat the device, and train the force. On the network, attack the pillar. On the pillar, attack the pillar on network, attack pillar. So 4 units are particularly dedicated to this and contributes directly to the support of the battle groups by producing analysis recommendations. They also contribute to the intel chain by participating in the network by mapping and targeting enemy. On the defeat the device pillar, we are directly integrated into the battle groups with our units and into the operation. I will just mention the road clearance package. It's a platoon mainly engaged in the convoys, where the ID threat is high and the distance are important, and the pace of the operation impose mechanical detection. I will go back to this later. And finally, on the train the force pillar, all the task force units participated in the training of the forces units prior to the operation, contributing to the regional process forces ramp up and to develop a relationship with all the Counter ID stakeholders. So facing this threat, the Counter ID warfare does not only aim at treating the effects of the ID, but also target the whole process, as I said. So design, resourcing, deployment, detection, treatment, and effect reductions. It does by implementing countermeasures that have technical application. To be effective, these capability solutions are above all accompanied by proven technical and tactical procedures that makes all the difference. I will now present to the capabilities that we used to fight IDs. To do so, I will group them according to the effects that they produce during the root operations. Whatever the means employed, the principle of Counter ID combat remains the same. So we must obtain intelligence ahead of the convoys. We have to detect the threat, whatever its forms, so pressure plates, radio command, low metal content, and so on. Permanently, we have to protect our sappers during the missions. We have also to confirm the presence of ID by limiting the exposures of the sappers to the maximum. And of course, we have to neutralize also the ID, so the threat. So the drones now. We use the NX-70, and on the left and on the right, the Parrot. On the right, directly used by the engineer combat sections, platoons, and whose effects of both drones are complementary. So the use is essentially and should be extended. The added value by the general vision of the terrain, but also they can multiply efficiency of the sappers by providing intel on the terrain, on the routes, and on the ID of the clues that have been found on the terrain. Their use limits the exposure of the sappers, favors the anticipation, the acquisition of tactical and technical information, save time also, which is very important in a route clearance operation. And they can also remove doubts that we have on what is really planned on or set up on the ground. So definitely it is the eye of the sapper carry out in the distance, which make it possible to identify indications of pose and possible triggers also, who can declench IDs. To protect us now, we have also jammers. In front of you, the three main models currently available. In the left corner, we have the BP 485, which progressively gives way to the barrage in the right corner. And in the center, we got the Sagint, which is used by the EOD to protect them during neutralization operation. And like this one during our mandate on the radio command ID. As I have pointed out, the radio command threat is increasing, and it reflects an increase of the enemy skills also, and probably a desire to discriminate, as I said, and to increase the cost effectiveness of resources used in making IDs, because you can remove them and use them later, or and choose who you want to strike. So the barrage jammer has a reactive system that also that allows it to jam the transmitters that it detects. It allows also to be very accurate and powerful without jamming our proper communications. So from Afghanistan to the Sahel, this metal detector remains inseparable of the silhouette of the sappers when we open routes. It's clearly the key equipment of the sapper, which coupled with his experience and the training and techniques, enables him to detect IDs. So the detector we used are able to detect most of the IDs or mine used, even they contain low metal, like some anti-tank mines used, less than one gram of metal in it. They are relatively easy to handle, and they are rustic, reliable, scalable also, and especially for the DMC, which is on the bottom, the right bottom of the slide. To complete this overview and of capabilities in terms of counter-ID warfare, I would like to turn on the specialized means, in particular the road clearance package, which concentrate all the functions that I present, like protect, detect, seeking intel, and neutralize. So on the top of the slide, here is the theoretical road clearance package that we didn't use. Okay. On the bottom of the slide, we have the road clearance package that we used due to the terrain or due to the disponibility, the availability of means during the operation. So we had mainly the multifunctional detection vehicle, which is on the head of the route, which is equipped with mass infrared decoy system on the front of the vehicle, and onboard magnetic detectors. This platoon is able to open routes at a speed of 15 kilometers per hour instead of 800 meters per hour for a platoon disembarked. And by this action, the rhythm of operation is guaranteed, is maintained, and the sappers remain less exposed and less tired during the disembark detections. We engaged this platoon in all our convoys, and this platoon carry out 4,000 kilometers during all the mandate in opening routes, and has detected and defeated all the explosive devices placed on his path. So this concludes my briefing, my presentation. Thank you for your attention, and I'm ready to answer your question if time permits before the next presentation. Okay, thank you.